Today I'm joined by Kat Price of Pattie & Co. Following more than 15 years in the corporate world, Kat was made redundant on maternity leave in 2016. As a new mum, it was a difficult period and she was subsequently diagnosed with postnatal anxiety. Kat took the opportunity to begin working for herself as a digital marketing consultant. Her confidence renewed, she started to take steps towards her long-held ambition of running a business of her own. She launched Pattie & Co. in November 2018, designing and selling super soft muslin baby products. It was important to her that her business had a sense of purpose, and so they donate 10% of sales from their muslin products on pattieandco.com to Tommy's Baby Charity. They have raised so far over £10,000. Kat, welcome. It's lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, maybe could you start by just telling us a little bit more about the business and sort of how you decided on the products that you wanted to sell?
Yeah, so it was a combination of things. I spent the summer in 2018 thinking about launching a business, but not really knowing what I would sell. I had this desire to run an e-commerce business. I'd started doing freelancing and that was a business of sorts, but I quite quickly realized I didn't want to run an agency or anything like that. So then I started to think about what kind of e-commerce business I might like to have. And I just started buying samples from various different places, just lots of Googling, got lost down lots of rabbit holes, and started ordering sort of quilting, the handmade quilts from India and baskets and all sorts of random bits and pieces, mainly all around children and baby decor. And then I sort of started to think more logistically and practically about it in terms of how easy it would be to store items, how easy it would be to make items. I quickly realized as well that I wanted to have something unique and bespoke. I didn't want to buy anything off the shelf from a manufacturer. I wanted it to be unique and sort of distinctively my brand. But I started to realize that, you know, if I had big baskets or quilts, and the investment that I'd need to make to kick off the business would be quite large. I could do those things down the line perhaps, but in order to start a business, I didn't have a huge amount of money to start it, just a few £1,000s. So it needed to be something very simple and something very easy to, and I'm not a designer or graphic designer either, but I have creative ideas. Yeah. So I started searching. I did actually buy the first 3 designs that I launched. I decided on muslins because they're very simple. Unlike clothes, I didn't need to have lots of different sizes. I just decided to do the swaddles. I'd been given swaddles when I was pregnant and I didn't even know what they were, to be honest. I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to swaddle my baby. It was a pack of 3 muslin swaddles. I just was a bit like, I've got no idea what to do with these. And as it turned out, we didn't swaddle. I don't think all babies are suited to it. I had a massive wriggler and he never seemed to take to it. And I probably wasn't very good at swaddling, to be fair. But yeah, they still became, you know, the most useful things. The single item that I literally carried everywhere, aside from nappies, I guess, and wet wipes. So I just felt like it would be a good thing to sell because I had this passion about how useful they were, and I realized not everyone would know as a new mom how useful they were, and all the different ways that you can use them. You know, I constantly had one over my shoulder, and I'd found some really nice ones that were soft and organic cotton or bamboo ones, and they were all lovely and soft. But then I was kind of frustrated by some of the designs that were always these kind of cartoon animals, maybe, or just very plain. And kind of generic designs basically, or very white, and they started to go a bit of a funny color and that kind of thing. So I thought, you know, something that was kind of always on my shoulder basically could be a bit more exciting, and not necessarily a wearable design that I would wear on its own, but just something a bit more bright and joyful basically, which is kind of where I started my thinking from when I was looking at designs. Because in the first instance, I didn't actually design the first 3 designs myself. I bought a commercial license to 3 patterns, and then I bought 3 quite different designs to kind of test the market effectively, and I was able to get those manufactured in very small quantities so I could test and see which kind of designs worked, because I wasn't sure if other people wanted big, bright, bold colours and patterns and things on their swaddles. So, and then one of them, the rainbow stripes, just, you know, really took off. Basically, it became quite popular. And when I first launched, I didn't have the Tommy's relationship, but I knew at that point that I wanted to donate to a charity, but I wasn't sure at that point that it was going to be Tommy's. I knew I wanted it to be related to babies and helping parents and mothers. But I thought I'd launch first and sort of start testing the waters. And then by January, I'd chatted to Tommy's and I'd started that relationship with them so that I could start donating to Tommy's. And then I think the Rainbow Association with Tommy's is quite a strong link there for people who refer to their babies as rainbow babies. And so, yeah, I decided to go with the rainbow theme. It's just, it made me feel good. It was an instinctive decision to just go with that, really. It all seemed to work well together, and people seemed to really love it. And then, having the kind of matching range, then I think is really lovely. So,
it is lovely.
So the subsequent designs I designed myself with the help of a graphic designer who could make them printable, seamless patterns, and it's some input from people like my sister who's very creative and that kind of thing. And so that's kind of how it started, really, on muslins, and then it just went from the swaddles. Then I just started to bring in other products as well.
Natural progression, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
So did you have any experience? You mentioned you bought the licenses for the designs and then you went to did you have any experience with that side of the business? I mean,
nothing at all.
Where did you start? How did you find
lots
out?
Of Googling, lots of Google, really just loads and loads of research and a bit of trial and error. And it was, I even, I invested in Adobe Illustrator and a course and trying to figure out how to do it myself, because I had these ideas, but I just didn't know how to get them on paper. And I spent hours because there's so many patterns that you can buy on all sorts of different websites out there. And like I said, I didn't want anything that was sort of, because some of them are very familiar patterns and you see them on other products, and I didn't want to have that. I wanted it to be unique to our brand. So yeah, it was, but you can buy patterns that you can then edit yourself. You can edit the colors and you can edit. So it was an easy way for me to know I had a seamless pattern, and that I could do what I wanted to it.
You can make it your own.
Create it. Exactly. Rather than having to create it from scratch. But there was quite a bit of trial and error on that, and I probably wasted quite a lot of time doing that.
Well, I suppose it's the same with everybody. You're kind of trying to figure it out as you go along. And I suppose if we knew what we would like, if we had that experience when you started, then you would be doing something completely different. But
now I've got a great designer that I work with, Aline. I know that I can just sort of chat to her and explain what's going on in my head, and she's got brilliant at understanding my gobbled train of thought, and she's really good at then translating what I'm thinking, and it's a much quicker process now to getting
that's a very valuable relationship to have.
Yeah.
So when it came to building your website, did you build your website yourself?
Yeah, I did. I was I kind of am a bit of a techie person, in as much as I did a computer science A-level, and I actually did a year of computer science degree, but realized I wasn't that techie, and I changed to a marketing degree. But I kind of have that sort of interest in it. And although I'd never done web design, things, Shopify is the platform I use, and it makes it so easy, I think, to create a website. There's so many different themes, and it's just literally sort of, you plug in your photos and your copy, and
And so how long was that? Quite a quick put my teeth back in. Was that quite a quick process for you?
I procrastinated quite badly, because I was studying Facebook advertising at the same time, and simultaneously, and I was still nervous about launching. I'd started the process of finding a manufacturer and getting these products printed, but I had them and I still didn't want to launch the website. I was like, I didn't know what to do. But then this course I was doing, it was a Facebook advertising course. It's a very sort of practical, technical course, but they also had this element where they had a bit of mindset coaching to help you then go and launch yourself as a self-employed freelancing person selling Facebook advertising, and to have the confidence to charge the right prices and all that kind of thing. And this one mindset coaching session we had, I just came off that call and it just, something really resonated with me, and I literally just spent the whole of the rest of that day on my website, and it was done then in a day, and I launched it that night. I just didn't think about it, I just did it, and I was like, there's a mistake, how many people are going to see it? You know, I'm not launching ads yet, there's going to be like 10 people, it's going to be friends and family, I don't need to worry. And and so it was great. So sometimes you just got to do it basically, and then fix the mistakes afterwards.
Yes, and I don't know who it is that says done is better than perfect, but I mean, sometimes you just have to get it out there, and then, like you say, kind of figure out and tweak and change things as you go. Otherwise, we just wait, and there's so many people find this. You just wait until you think it's perfect, but of course, it's not going to be perfect, is it?
And it's still not perfect, and I'm still tweaking it all the time. And I've never spent any money on SEO. There's loads of things I need to do, but you know, I can only do so much. It's just me. So I do what I can, and then hope that I'll have the capacity and the resources to do more and get better and better as time goes on. So
so when you did launch it, obviously you've got a marketing background. Do you think that made it easier for you to actually start to market the business online? What did you find the most effective?
So because before I did the Facebook advertising, I'd also done a social media marketing. I'd worked in marketing and sales in my corporate life, and then when I got made redundant, because I didn't have the confidence to kind of go back into the workplace, I decided to do this course in social media marketing, because I felt like I needed something. I wanted to go freelance at that point, but I felt like although I could have just gone out and been a marketing consultant, I didn't have the confidence after what happened, and with the postnatal anxiety, I kind of questioned who I thought I was, and I wanted this tangible course to go, here, I've got a certificate to prove that I can do.
I've been there,
so I did that course, and I worked just in social media marketing for a while. And actually, I ended up getting a sort of more of a broad marketing consultancy role in a similar industry that I'd been working in before, scientific software. But I ended up traveling because there were two companies that were French, and I just thought, I'm going back to what I wanted to get away from. So and because social media marketing, you know, is comparatively low pay to those kind of more broader marketing consultancy roles, I decided to specialize in Facebook advertising, thinking it would help enhance my offering as a social media marketer, but also in the back of my head knowing that it would come in use if I did ever, you know, sort of sort myself out and launch an e-commerce business. And it was because of these mindset coaching courses, element of this course that then made me get on and do it. But I've often thought, I don't know how people do it without that background, to be honest, because it's really hard to get seen on social media these days. And it's definitely helped me. I can't imagine how slow it would have been otherwise.
And so what kind of, you obviously, do you do Facebook ads at the
Facebook ads
all the time? Do you do any other kind of paid advertising, or is it?
I've done a bit of Google advertising as well. I'm not doing anything very consistently at the moment, to be honest. I've had a few challenges this year with supply chain and stock issues in manufacturing. So and also there's problems with Facebook ads with those. I don't know if you've probably seen, there's a feud going on between Apple and Facebook. And the Facebook pixel isn't quite working the way it used to work anymore. It's not quite as consistent, and it's not quite as easy to get a return on Facebook ads as it once was. And especially for what I call low ticket e-commerce, which is, you know, where your average order is below £50, it can be quite a challenge. So I use it quite sort of strategically, and some people will probably say it's not strategic to do it here and there, but it's working for me the way I'm doing it at the moment. I've had lots of trial and error, and it's what I can do within the resources I've got, because for me there's no point in me running ads when I'm low on stock on my sort of best-selling items. But anyway, that's a whole another story. But so it's mainly Facebook ads, but also Instagram is I do Instagram ads as well through the Facebook ads platform, but just organic Instagram I think really helps as well. And doing things like giveaways and collaborations and using influencers and that kind of thing has helped as well in terms of marketing. There's lots more I could be doing as well. But again, it's one of those things, there's only so much you can do.
Well, I suppose there's only 24 hours in a day, and it is, I mean, it's literally just you involved in the business, obviously. So
Yeah, on a permanent basis.
on a,
Yeah, so I did use someone else, with a lady called Rebecca Perkins helped me with my Google ads, and then Aline helped me with the graphic design, and I've had more recently, when I just recently changed manufacturing, and I've used a brilliant lady called Natalie Binns, who's been helping me who helped me source a new manufacturer, and hopefully I'm going to work a bit more with her. So yeah, there's a few, and I've got an accountant who's helping me do my financial planning and being really strategic when my son's back to school, and I can focus on it a bit more. But yeah, helping me work out the business plan for the next sort of 5 years, which is going to be really important. So I've got someone helping me do that as well. So I've got people helping me now, so that it obviously helps. But and I think I was speaking to someone recently. I said things like having someone help you source the manufacturer. Knowing what I know now, I would have invested in something like that at the beginning. But it's when you're just sort of starting out on your own, you don't have many resources. You don't know what to spend money on, and where's the best place to spend it. So I've learned a huge amount in the last 2 years, for sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned that your son is at home. Obviously, then you're homeschooling. How I said this in the last letter. How have you sort of managed to juggle having to deal with the kids and run your business?
So
that must be so hard.
It is hard, but I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones in a sense. I've only got one son, and so I'm not dealing with all different age groups with different needs and different lessons and that kind of thing. So I've got one son. My husband, he works from home predominantly. Very occasionally he has to go to site, but although his job is pretty full on, he's full-time permanent employed, so he kind of needs to be there, but he is able to. So in the morning, for example, I've been getting up, my son's an early riser anyway, he's up at 6. I've been coming into the office at 6:30 and getting in a couple of hours before John then has to sit down and do his job, and then John's managing to get a couple of hours in the afternoon again to take Sam out on a bike ride or to the park, just to get some fresh air. And so I'm getting sort of 4 hours a day, whereas previously I was fitting it in around school hours anyway, so I wasn't getting a huge amount more than that. And then of course I've got the evenings if I need them too. So it's not ideal, but we are, I think, like I said, I feel like I'm one of the more fortunate ones, for sure. He's not awfully keen on doing. I mean, he's about to be 5. He's only young, so it's not. Again, that also makes it easier because it's not that much of a worry. It's not like he's doing exams or anything.
You don't have to understand the maths.
No, exactly.
Like, why we didn't do it like this when we were at school?
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I struggle even with the phonics, to be honest. It's not how I learned to read, and so I'm like, oh, I said that sound wrong. So it makes me feel really stupid. But yeah, he's not that reluctant, so we're using lots of reward charts and stickers and things like that to try and motivate him. But I'm just trying to, you just take it day by day. Yeah.
So do you think how did COVID affect you? I mean, I've spoken to other business owners, and they've had issues with obviously, like you mentioned, supply chain, but deliveries as well. But on the other side, and most of the ones that I work with, the e-commerce has saw a massive rise, and they have just done amazingly well because obviously people are now buying online. What was your experience with that?
Yeah, so I was a bit unlucky in that sense, because I think I would have benefited more from that spike in online shopping, but because the timing, so with China going into their own lockdown in January last year, that was when my manufacturing was due to start. Basically, it was after they came back, because they have their Chinese New Year, and they were supposed to come back from the Chinese New Year and kick off manufacturing, but of course they didn't come back, so that set back my stock. So by the time our lockdown started, I had pretty much run out of stock, and I was just waiting for this stock to arrive. And by that point they had started manufacturing because they were starting to open up again. But yeah, it was quite frustrating. But I just, despite the fact my son, because at that time my son was at nursery and he wasn't obviously in nursery, so I had my hands full, but yet I felt like there was I could be doing something more useful with my online presence and the audience that I had. So I decided to do a limited range of t-shirts and baby grows. I worked with Aline again to do a Rainbow of Hope design. Everyone was putting up rainbows in their windows, and obviously we were known for our rainbows and supporting a charity. So we made these t-shirts and baby grows and gave all of the profits to NHS charities together. And unfortunately, we raised £5,500, which was brilliant. But unfortunately, we had manufacturing problems because they couldn't keep up with the demand. And so everything kind of got delayed. So I ended up having to pause it earlier than we might have done otherwise. But yeah, we managed to raise £5,500 for NHS.
Oh, that's amazing.
So
that's amazing.
It was a nice way to use that period where, like I said, I had this an audience who liked rainbows, and I used it as a way to make some money for charity. Yeah, so it was good. And then by the time that had ended, my new stock had arrived. So that was, and it in fairness, it sold faster than any stock I've had, but I'd already got behind by that point. So I was kind of on the back foot with trying to get them the new stock order in. And then I had problems with my manufacturer, unfortunately. The next delivery of stock, at very short notice, I found out that it had to be a different fabric composition. It wasn't organic cotton, it was going to be bamboo and cotton, which I had nothing against necessarily, but it was like, well, that's not what I sell. That's not what I'm known for. Yeah. And it really I'd always had quite a good relationship with the manufacturer, but it kind of broke me, to be honest. I just felt really naive. I felt it made me realize how vulnerable I was, that I was so dependent on this manufacturer, and that they would just do that, at short notice. And there was nothing. I was literally helpless. I just needed stock. And obviously I had to change all the packaging, and all of my website and everything had to change, and it's confusing to how to message it to my customers and explain what had happened. And I had items on pre-order sold as organic cotton, and then having to explain to those customers. So yeah, it was, I honestly wanted to give up at that point. I was really I was kind of questioned my capabilities, because I just felt there were questions and things I should have done that I didn't do. So it was a big learning experience. But that was the point that I decided I obviously needed to change manufacturer. I'd lost my trust in these guys. So and that was something I'd been thinking about doing anyway, because I'd wanted actually to bring it closer to I wanted to do manufacturing in Europe, but unfortunately it's transpired that it's prohibitively expensive. Basically, my products, I would make a loss on the cost of manufacturing products in Europe, unfortunately, for the products that I manufacture at the quantities, because I'm a small business. I haven't got the buying power of big companies yet. So but I have found a really amazing manufacturer in India. They only work with GOTS certified 100% organic cotton. They've got a really good, they've been independently audited by SEDEX for all of their working ethics, their sustainability, the way they treat their employees, and their health and safety, and all of those aspects. So I feel really confident, and that's what Natalie's helped me with. I feel really confident that I found a really good manufacturer this time. So it's worked out well in the end. But again, that process, finding that manufacturer, took longer than I was expecting. So I'm behind again on my stock. So that's my biggest frustration at the moment, is trying to even out my stock levels. But I was getting there, and then just a couple of setbacks, and it throws everything off. So that's the biggest challenge.
Things are thrown at you, but you keep coming out on top. So that's the main thing you have to focus on. Is that you're getting the challenges are coming, but you're getting through them and keeping going. That's the main.
And realizing, I guess, you have to get help. I think, because I did start to look for another manufacturer on my own, and I thought, this is stupid. I'm not an expert in this. I don't know where to look at how to do this, and how to negotiate, and how to make sure that I'm getting all the things that I should be getting.
And so I think you mentioned at the beginning that you're hopefully going to be expanding your product range. Do you have any ideas about that yet? Which type to kind of direction you want to go with that?
Again, that's been a challenge, because there's lots of different ways you could go, and there's so many products do I stay with babies? Do I to move into children's products? Do I stay with the rainbow theme? There's so many different ways, and again, with limited resources in terms, I don't have a big investor or anything like that. I'm literally just growing with my own, with the business's funds. The business I literally started with just a few £1,000s, and one day it probably will get to a point where I'll need to have some significant investment to grow significantly or to grow more quickly. But at the moment, so we're doing some bibs at the moment. I put some sort of nursery wall art prints online recently. Again, as something, because I'm waiting for stock and I'm making the bibs with some muslin that I had here already, and I found a local sewer to help me make the bibs. I'm looking at cot sheets and bedding for children as well, and pajamas and baby grows and those kinds of things, all of the kind of obvious things. But I'm just doing one thing at a time and doing what I can when I can.
Do you find sometimes you get it too ahead of yourself and you have to kind of rein yourself back in and go, right, come on now, focus on?
Yeah, definitely. And not everything works. Like, I've brought out new designs that I've loved and other people have loved, but not enough people have loved. So you just go, okay, fine, scrap that, move on. So it's hard because you don't always have the answers. And I do get a lot of feedback from my customers, and I do polls and things like that to do my research. So that helps a lot, actually. People are really helpful. And I've done customer interviews and things like that, which helps guide me a little bit in terms of the direction to take. But I think there's strategically, if I just stayed with new baby products, I'm going to have to be constantly finding new customers. So if I'm thinking about finding products for their children as they grow as well, that's probably the sensible way to move forward.
Yeah, that's the sensible thing, because when I was doing my e-commerce, it was wedding products, favors and stationery, and then you suddenly think, as soon as somebody's got married, you can't then kind of go back to them with an email and say, oh, do you want to buy some more wedding favors? Like, no. I mean, you could. And at one point it was like, well, do you kind of, after about 3 or 4 years, like on the off chance they might. But it makes it so much harder that you haven't got that consistency and the people can keep coming back to you. It's
I do
dimension to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, things like word of mouth are really good, because obviously it's the sort of thing people buy gifts for. So a lot of our orders are gifts and words and recommendations. And then I've got some amazing, very loyal customers who've been with me since the beginning, that I've sort of built up friendships. Now they come to see me at the baby show and that kind of thing, and they've literally got every product we sold. So those are my, those are the kind of people I go to ask for their feedback, because they're obviously my ideal customer. So it's I'm always amazed, to be honest. Every time someone buys something, I'm amazed. It always feels flattering. So I'm still at that, nice. I don't want to ever lose that. I kind of, I value every customer and feel grateful to have people that want to buy stuff that I'm making.
So that kind of leads me to ask, in an ideal world, in sort of 5 years, 10 years time, where do you want to see Pattie and Co? I mean, have you got a big vision?
So I always had this idea naively, well, not naively, because I knew that it wasn't easy to do, but because I knew that most or a lot of business owners ends up becoming kind of slaves to their business, because you can't, it's just you've got to give it everything you have. You've invested so much time in it now, you can't get out of it, because what are you going to do? And you can't, like, I've been in this 2 years now, I've invested this money, what I need to keep going kind of feeling. But I like to think that I'm not, part of the reason I wanted to do this as well was, while my son was young, I am the person that picks him up from school every day, I drop him off every day, and those kinds of things that I wanted to be able to do. Or that if we had I never predicted a pandemic, admittedly, but in the school holidays, that my business wasn't all consuming. I've tried to keep that perspective, that although I'm ambitious, I'm not trying to do anything too crazy that I can't just press pause when I need to press pause, which is why I've kind of haven't looked at investment yet, because I didn't want to be answerable to anyone else yet. But at the same time, I am trying to build a brand that has some value and that might one day be a saleable brand, because I don't think this is something that I'll want to do forever, necessarily, or that once the business gets to a certain size that I'll be the right person to run it either. Assuming I can get it to that size, there's probably someone who's much better and more experienced, and I can make mistakes now because they're not costing too much. The risk isn't too great, but obviously as the business grows, mistakes can become more and more costly, and could come close to finishing the business. They could really finish the business when you've got investors who've invested X tens of thousands of pounds or whatever. So I might not be the right person at that point to run the business. So in my mind, my ambition is to sell the business at some point, and still be involved in it, hopefully. But that it kind of becomes, and I already start thinking about other ideas for other businesses, and the temptation has just been, I've had to stop myself from literally just quickly setting up another Shopify, because I just
that's the curse of the creative entrepreneur, though, isn't it? That you just always just do this, and
well, and I think I've worked in lots of different industries as well, and I like starting new things, but hopefully I can finish this as well. So I just I need to see it through and take it to know that I've done everything I can to get it to be the best it can be.
I'm sure you will, and I look forward to seeing it at that stage as well. So one last little question. If somebody's coming to you because they have an idea, they want to start their own online shop, what would be the one thing that you'd say to them, or you wish somebody had said to you at the beginning when you started, do you think?
Be very clear on whether it will be profitable, and because I think a lot of people who are creatives who start businesses because I had an interest in running a business as well as having a bit of a creative mind, but I wasn't selling my hobby. I wasn't a knitter, I wasn't a drawer, I wasn't a whatever it was. I just wanted to run a business, and I wanted to run a business with purpose. Those were the two things I knew I wanted to do. I didn't really mind what I sold. So I have done it with that in mind, about being clear about trying to do everything. I'm not saying I'm getting it right necessarily, but I'm trying to be as profitable as I can. And I think it's hard sometimes, say if you're making something yourself and you're not paying yourself and you're selling it. I see a lot of products that I think are just underpriced, basically, because I know they're being handmade and long term, and to be a scalable business you get a sense that it's going to be very hard to do that. But having said that, some people aren't in the business to make a huge profit. They just want to do the thing they love. But I would just be trying not to shy away from the numbers, and just make sure that you've worked out, including your time spent, whether those products are profitable.
And I, like you say, like you mentioned, not everybody is in it to build some big massive company, but also you see a lot of people when they have a hobby and they sort of start making money out of it, it then turns completely on its head, because they start to hate doing the hobby because they are having to do it for the business. I suppose that's another thing to think about, isn't it?
And also that I guess it's one thing if you're not interested in making lots of money, but presumably you don't want to lose money either. So it's a very easy thing to do, because once you become invested in something and you do see signs of it growing, it's hard then to just walk away. Whereas if you work that all out at the beginning, right, I'm gonna sell this product for this amount, but really when you add up all of the costs, you can kind of quickly see how many you'd need to sell in order for it to make a profit. It's simple. It's much more simple than I think people who are scared of those numbers. It is much more simple than sometimes people make it out to be to do it. So.
That's good advice. Very good advice. So if people want to find out more about you or reach out to you, where can they go?
So on Instagram and Facebook, we're Pattie Co Kids. It's PATTIE Co Kids. And pattieandco.com. You can email me at kat@pattieandco.com as well. I'm always happy to hear from people, and I love chatting to other sort of small business owners as well. So if anybody wants to just have a chat about our shared struggles. Happy to do that as well. So yeah,
wonderful.
Probably...
Wonderful. Well, I wish you every success, and I
Thank you,
look forward to seeing the company, the business grow, and the product range expanding. My kids are big people now, but I do have grandchildren, and presumably I will have some more coming along in future years, where I'll be looking for sort of the baby products and the muslins again. But I wish you every success. And thank you so much for chatting to me today. It's been lovely.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.